Okay, so over the course of the past couple weeks, I've watched season 3 of Atlanta. And it's been a while since I was watching Atlanta because I had about a couple weeks where I wanted to watch it and then just kind of didn't. And then I said, okay, I'm going to study for the bar, take the bar. When I'm done with the bar, I'm going to resume Atlanta. It's something I'm really looking forward to. Season 1, I thought was fantastic. Season 2, I thought was even better. So I came back in with really high expectations. Like, let's go. I'm so excited. And as I was watching the season, I wasn't sure what I thought of it. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And for me, I think a big reason of that was these kind of one off episodes. I'm going to be honest, there's some episodes where I remember the names, most of them I don't, so I'll kind of vaguely refer to them by their plot and full spoilers for the season. But it's the Three Slaps, which is the Aquarius episode, it's the premiere, the reparations episode, the what is it, Trinity to the Bone, I think is what it is, the episode with the housekeeper who dies, and the Aaron episode, Rich Wigga Poor Wigga. Like, I that is a dangerous title to say. It's like, that's very close to saying something else. So I don't think I'm going to say the title of that episode again. But that's, I think that's the penultimate episode of the season. Yeah, and then right after that, it's the Van episode. And even that one, Van is the only main character, with the exception of Ern showing up literally like the post-credit scene for a couple minutes. The lack of the lack of consistently seeing the main cast definitely took me out of it, because I don't think these one-off episodes are necessarily bad. I was like, I'm enjoying these. I mean, they're most, like, the first two in particular are so uncomfortable to watch. I'm like, I still think they're very well done. I think the performances throughout the season are fantastic by both the main cast and some of our one-off actors. I'm like, I'm enjoying these, but I'm here as well for the main cast. Alfred in particular. Like, I noticed any episode that didn't have Alfred or didn't have Van, I felt a lot less engaged in. If the episode had at least one of them, I was like, ta-da, I think that's how you pronounce it. Or like New Jazz, or I don't remember what it's called, but the episode with Wiley, I was really invested in those episodes. Some of the others, though, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I liked this season very much. But as I sat down and was writing up my notes, and this is another one of those where it's like I had to bust out the laptop for this one to really, really sift through and be like, okay, what did I think of this season? Was I too harsh on it? Like, what are the big themes I've noticed throughout the season? Something I talked about in the previous videos is, to me, Atlanta is a show that's all about hustle and trying to get to a better place in life. There is a lot of hustle in season 3. And some other things as well. Like, there's very clearly a lot of episodes about race and racial identity and race relations. I also noticed themes of, like, aimlessness, isolation. I think that was it. Because I had like 3 to 4. I'm actually going to go through my list. Racial identity and relations, hustle, aimlessness and trying to find an identity, feelings of isolation and powerlessness. And also, it's Atlanta. There's a non-zero amount of just weirdo, bizarro shit. And the more I was going, like, theme by theme, being like, okay, how does this episode play into the theme? Okay, it does quite a bit. What about this episode? Okay, this one does quite a bit. I feel like I've left the season saying, okay, I did enjoy this season quite a bit. This is a very good season of Atlanta. It's not, it's different. And I generally don't like change. So that's why I'm like, I'm not as sure. I still feel like I really missed the main cast when they weren't there. Again, Alfred and Van in particular. Not to say that I don't miss Darius, because I really enjoy Darius. Um, but overall, I feel like while some of the individual parts didn't always work for me, I think the work as a whole is still pretty fucking stellar. But I will say it is my least favorite season so far, but I think it's still very good. Excuse me. So I do want to kind of go theme by theme and just some of the different ways that I think the episodes contributed to that or showed it off or explored it. I think that's probably a good term for it. We're starting with racial identity and race relations. Literally the first scene of the show with the white guy and the black guy going fishing on the lake, and the white guy's telling this horror story about, oh yeah, this used to be a black town, but it got drowned out because the government didn't care about them. And he's talking about what it means to be white and how it's not just the color of your skin. Being white is a state of being, which is something that Liam Neeson, weirdly enough, Liam Neeson kind of echoes in New Jazz when he's at the cancel club with Paperboy, and excuse me, he's telling him, he's like, oh yeah, like what was the story? I think it was a friend of mine was raped by a black man, so I've said some very unflattering things about black people, and while I feel like I learned my lesson in a sense that there's things you probably just shouldn't say, I still have my problems with black people now because it led to me getting canceled. So I used to have this issue that wasn't their fault. It was like is an isolated incident. But now that this has happened, no, I'm actually pretty fucking hateful. But you know what I really genuinely learned from all of this? Being white means you don't really have to learn a lesson. It's great. And then he just kind of pats Paperboy in the back and walks off. I'm like, that's... What the fuck just happened? I was really surprised to see Liam Neeson in Atlanta, but I thought it was kind of neat. But yeah, that's about, like, white is a state of being, and when you're white, you don't really have to learn lessons, which, I mean, from my own experience, that's definitely not true, but it's what the show is going for. L'Aquarius is told by his mom that you need to be careful in the ways that you interact with white people, because if you don't play along, they might just fucking kill you, which is what that crazy ass couple tries to do by the end of the episode. There's this scene when he and the other kids are working in the garden, and the mom's like, hey, you're our kids, it's okay, we give you food, we give you shelter, it's fine. Hey, if you're bothered, you can just sing while you work. And so, look, I don't remember what L'Aquarius starts singing. He starts singing some, she's like, no, not something like that. I don't remember what she started singing either, but it's like this very slave adjacent kind of work song. I'm like, oh, I can't watch this. Dude, 3 slaps. In hindsight, really going through it, I'm like, this is definitely an episode of Atlanta. It feels more like I'm watching like a short horror film. I was so uncomfortable the entire time. Like, it's great television, but I don't think I would ever want to watch it again. In the next episode, I think that's the Sinterklaas is coming to town. That's the episode where there's blackface everywhere, and they're trying to explain that, like, hey, here, it's not a racist thing. Like, there's a reason we do this. It's a cultural thing. But also, our characters from Atlanta are like, no, this is not okay. This makes us really uncomfortable. And Paperboy's gonna do a show, and the entire crowd is in blackface. He's like, I can't do this. Like, if it's a cultural thing, I get it, but I do not feel comfortable by this. I feel insulted by this. I'm not performing. which leads to Earn telling the promoter, it's like, yo, Paperboy can't do the show. He makes up some bullshit, like, he's sick. It just kind of happened. I'm sorry. And the dude just stands there for a second. He's like, I'm going to destroy you. What? I'm going to destroy you. And then as Earn starts leaving, the dude just starts following him and chasing him. And then just tackles another black guy and starts beating the shit out of him. And in my brain, because Clay watched that bit with me and he's like, what the fuck? Why is he attacking this other guy? And my brain was like, oh, he can't tell the difference. Oh, that's fucked. And then Earn's just watching this other dude get the shit beat out of him and just leaves. The next episode, which is the one with like the weird dude with the tree, the big race relations moment in this episode, aside from, did I actually write the hustle moment down? I actually didn't write the hustle moment down. I kind of put it in the next part, where Earn and the artist kid are talking about like, hey, I know I'm full of shit, but we're both black. We have to look out for each other. And yeah, I know this dude is your friend. He's also a rich white guy who's willing to help out black people. Shouldn't we milk this for all it's worth? There's that bit, and there's also Socks. So Darius is talking to this woman. I believe she was a Korean woman. Yeah, she's Korean because there's a comment later about how she's trying to get her mom out of North Korea. And they talk for a little bit, and they have a very lovely interaction. And then she leaves, and then this British dude's like, hey, man, I was trying to do a Brit. In my head, I was imagining a British accent. I don't know what the fuck that was. That was a poor attempt at anything. But this dude comes up to him and is just like, hey, what she said to you was really fucked up. What do you mean? Yeah, just like, what she said to you, man. Like, that's not okay, and I'm sorry. And then Sock starts telling other people about the supposedly fucked up thing, and then later it starts getting more detailed, like, yeah, you know, she was just saying, like, hey, man, all lives matter, and blah, 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 which is shit that she just didn't say, and there ends up becoming this giant crowd of people that are supporting Darius, even though, and not listening to him, because like, that didn't happen. I don't know what you all are talking about. And when the woman sees him again and waves him, he's like, go, go, go. And then they all just swarm her, start yelling at her, calling her this piece of shit. Her fiance ends up finding out. He's like, hey, man, I heard what she did. She's not my fiance anymore. I'm so sorry. And the episode ends where you just see her, like, on the side of the street outside just crying because her life has gone to shit over something she didn't do because of... I don't know how much of it is white guilt, because it is something they talk about, but it's like white guilt, and also I think Sock's just being a fucking menace to society, as we see in the Wiley episode, which was weird, because at the end of the episode, I'm like, oh, okay, I mean, he's getting on the bus with them. It's like he's the guy that stole Alfred's phone. I'm assuming he's gonna be a major presence throughout the rest of the season, or they're gonna have an episode like dealing with it, and he's just not in the rest of the season. So I don't know if that was it. I don't know if he shows back up in season 4, but okay, that ended up kind of going nowhere. I was in that episode. The next episode is the reparations episode, and they're like, yeah, so how does that affect race relations? White people are being sued for their ancestors having slaves, and we get to see poor Marshall like losing his wife, his family, his home, his job, and just the growing discomfort from him and a lot of other people having to deal with this shit. We also get the like shot at the very end of the episode with, you know, seeming like this fine dining establishment with all the white people as the staff and the waiters being the servants to the wealthy blacks. And I actually kind of liked that image. I thought that was just kind of a neat role reversal from what the episode was kind of saying. Like, this is more like how society works, you know, or at the very least, a lot of them are people who were down the line, or maybe like up the line, I guess, we're talking about your ancestors. They were the wealthy white people being served by their, black slaves. And now they're not quite, they're definitely not slaves, they're still getting paid. But you do get the role reversal. I thought that was kind of interesting. Gosh, you get the next episode, which is I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one with the fashion council, the fashion company, and their diversity council. And there's this one bit where there's this more like light-skinned dude who's saying the N-word, and Alfred's like, is anyone else bothered by this? Is anyone else okay with him saying it? And no one really says anything. The dude says it again, and Alfred's like, no, I just don't like it when you say it. Which, in my head, I'm just like, this is literally Kendrick and Drake. Oh, it was fucking great. I even hate it when you say the word. But I guess it's just me. I guess some shit just cringeworthy. It ain't gotta be deep, I guess. We had that. We've got the fact that Alfred has this bit of inspiration, and a lot of it came from him talking to Ern, that like, hey, like if these people are trying to, if they actively want our opinion on how to help race relations, and if they actually want to be able to give back and make up for their like racist shit that they did, let's actually do it. What if we made a campaign, invest in your hood, reinvest in your hood, and try to teach black people to invest in their community, to invest in local black businesses. I think we should do that. And everyone else on the council is like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then when you see the ad, it's... Yes, there's black people talking about reinvesting in their hood. There's also white people talking about reinvesting in their hood, and have like, hey, we all come from a hood. We're all from the same hood. And you just have Alfred in the background, getting really passionate, like, reinvest in your hood. We can do it. And his immense and incredible frustration at the fact that he, as selfish as Alfred can be, you genuinely see that passion and desire to reach out to people and help people. I think particularly after the Woods episode and like that bit at the end where he just like takes a picture with a fan, I feel like it's a moment that really changed his perspective. And I feel like especially after his interaction with Wiley earlier in the season, he's like, you know what? I did just kind of want to be on the council, like to get free shit, like get a bunch of clothes, get some money. But fuck it, like I actively want to be able to do something here. And you see like that genuine passion and desire, and then it just gets corrupted and there's nothing he can do about it. And as the other member of the council says to him at the end, it's like, Alfred, duh, this is exactly the kind of shit they do. Why would they want to tell their audience to reinvest in themselves instead of investing in them? What did you think was going to happen? I still have an extra ticket to Black Panther 2 if you want to come see it. We got that. Oh yeah, I think it was also in that episode is when Darius went to this Nigerian restaurant. What was it called? Like Jollof. I don't actually remember what it was called, but it was this like Nigerian rice dish. And I looked into it. I was like, oh no, like this is a real thing. This actually sounds kind of good as fuck. But he goes out with this woman who also works at the fashion company, and she gets really into the dish, so she ends up buying out the Nigerian restaurant and running her own food truck with it, and putting her own spin on the food. And Darius is just so deeply uncomfortable and unsettled with the cultural appropriation. He's like, nah. He doesn't even try the food. He's like, no, I can't do this. And just leaves and throws it in the trash. There's in Trinity to the Bone, you've got Sebastian's parents and their growing discomfort being at the funeral. And there's a part of me that's a little torn on it, and I'm like, is this really a race relation identity thing? Because on the one hand, it's like they're seeing people getting very passionate and like a fight is breaking. Literally, like a fight breaks out in the middle of a funeral. I'm like, I don't even think that's a race thing. I think that is just like this might be a bit much. I'm a little uncomfortable here. But then you have the pastor, I believe it was the pastor, it was someone at the funeral saying like, wait, you're scaring off the white folks. But they talk about, or excuse me, like he talks about how this is how my people deal with grief. It's not just something where, we cry and we get a bit sad. We do get very emotional. Yes, you just heard her daughter, talking shit to her, telling, like, getting very, passionate about what happened. A fight is breaking out, but, it's all love. But this is how we're processing our grief. I don't know. I actually really liked that scene. And I'll be honest, it was possibly my least favorite episode of the season. Overall, it just really didn't do it for me. But I liked that scene right there. I thought it was really good. And in the penultimate episode with Aaron, it's his entire character and storyline is about his racial identity. He's a mixed kid who identifies as white, and he really wants to go to college, but he can't go to college because he can't afford it. But then the school ends up gets a local wealthy black man invests a lot of money in the school. He's like, look, this is called Stonewall Jackson High School, and I fucking hate that. I don't want it to be named after this racist slave owner, so I'm going to change it to Robert S. Lee. And there's that part of me that goes, I know it's a different middle initial, but it's still Robert Lee. There's no way that wasn't intentional. But he also says, I will pay the tuition of every senior who is black. So, Aaron goes to apply for the scholarship, and it's not just okay, you're light skinned, so no, or oh, you're black, you are. There's an interview, to actually determine if someone is black. And I'll be honest, it's not my favorite scene of the season. That's probably Wiley or probably something from New Jazz. Or the baguette scene. The fucking baguette scene is amazing. It's one of my favorite episodes of the season. It's easily my favorite episode of the season. Or easily my favorite episode. Yeah, my favorite scene of the episode. Blah. Why was it so hard to say? It was just kind of wild, but really entertaining to listen to. With just some of the questions and then some of the answers. So now I'm in my head going okay, what was the question? He's denied the scholarship because he's not black enough. They specifically you remind me of another guy, Clarence Thomas. One of the other guys on the council was like, you didn't have to call him Clarence Thomas. I'm sorry, that fucking killed me. And there ends up, Aaron decides, fuck this shit, I'm gonna burn the school down, and he meets another dude who's gonna do the same thing, and it's this Nigerian guy. He's like, I'm not considered black because, I'm Nigerian, even though, my skin is black, but I guess I'm a different culture. And then Aaron's like, well, yeah, you aren't black, you have your own culture, you're Nigerian, you're not black. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's bullshit. So instead of working together to burn down the school, they have a flamethrower fight, which leads to the Nigerian kid getting shot. And when Mr. Lee shows up at the school, he's like, dude, you got shot by the cops? That's the blackest thing that can happen. Tell you what, I'm going to pay your scholarship, I'm going to pay your medical bills, you're okay. And then 1 year later, you see Aaron has now fully embraced his black identity. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's, for me, that was what I saw thematically as being a lot of the moments with racial relations or racial identity. So now I want to get into some of the hustle moments. One of my favorites is from the Sinterklaas episode. when you first see Alfred's in jail, and the reason he's in jail is because he picked up these two girls, and they just got into a massive fight and like fucked up his hotel room, so he's in trouble for that too. And there's a dude, I want to say his name was like Klaus, it was probably Klaus, who's working the jail, and he's a fan of Paperboy, and Paperboy is like ordering food. He's like, all right, man, can I get this, this? Oh, like, sure, Paperboy, I'm so happy. Like, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much. And the guy comes back in and is like, hey, you're getting bailed out. Do you want to go ahead and leave? And Alfred just sits there. Nah, let me wait for my lunch first. He's like, give me my food first. Let me take a nap, and then I'll head out. Like, I fucking love this dude. In the next episode, like I was saying earlier, there's this artist who's not particularly good, but he's convinced this wealthy investor that, like, hey, I'm great, I'm the next big thing, you should really do this. And Ern's like, look, this dude is my friend, and he's clearly being taken advantage of. I don't want to be involved in this opportunity. And he says some kind of, like, bullshit to try to get out of it. And then the artist goes up to him later and is like, hey, man, I know you think this is bullshit. And just between you and me, yeah, it is. But we're both black. We should try to help each other out. And if this dude is willing to help, if he's willing to throw money away at me, I'm going to take it. And you should do the same thing. And then Ern goes up to his friend later. He's like, hey, man, so you were telling me about, this business opportunity that you want me to get invested in. And the more I've thought about it, and I've done a little bit of my own research, I think it's a good idea, but I don't think you're quite spending enough. Here's what I think you should do, and this is what you should do for me. Like, yeah, that's the Atlanta I know and love. Just like, how can I better myself, and how can I take advantage of a situation? It might not be Robin season anymore, but we got the spirit. Also, in that same episode, Alfred's playing cards with all these wealthy dudes, and he wins, and the guy just doesn't give him his money, and they're like, yeah, you're never getting your money back. So Alfred ends up cutting down the guy's prized tree. I'm sorry, that shit was fucking funny. I talked about the reparation suits in episode 4, how that's definitely a hustle, and I'm not trying to say that in a way where it's clearly bullshit or clearly not bullshit. It's just look, there's an opportunity and someone taking advantage of the opportunity to get to a better spot in life. Like I've said, like in the previous 2 seasons, to me, while these other themes are still there, to me, this has been what I've felt is like the primary theme of Atlanta, because it's what Ern's character is all about. How do I get to a better position? What do I have to do? What opportunities do I have to snatch? Who do I have to take advantage of? How do I get to a better spot than where I am now? But the reparation suits, as I mentioned, like the diversity council, not really saying like, all right, this is what we should do to actually try and help race relations or anything, because like they have a meeting. It's like, okay, what do we all need? And Alfred's like, I don't know, like, here's some shit that I think would be helpful, and everyone else is like, cool, give me 2 tickets and, like, a spa trip to, I don't know, like, Malaysia or something. It's like, give me tickets to Black Panther 2. Oh, shit, that's a good idea. Give me tickets to Black Panther 2. Trying to get whatever they can out of it. There's the scene, I think it's also in that episode, when Ern runs into Van, who has been accused of stealing, and given her character in this season, I 1000% believe she did. And he just kind of pulls some shit out of his ass where he's like, hey, like my fiance was just accused of stealing, and I don't have my bags, and blah, 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 blah. And he ends up getting a free room at this hotel. Like, are you staying here? I am now. We've got, in Trinity to the Bone, during the funeral, there's a scene where someone at the funeral is like, hey, I know you guys are probably in need of a new housekeeper, so here's my card. And the person next to him is like, you piece of shit. No, we're at her funeral. Don't be trying to get business, you asshole. That was really funny. Um, in New Jazz, Alfred's interactions with Lorraine are essentially someone telling him to stay sharp so he doesn't get hustled. Like, there are people who are trying to take advantage of you and manipulate you. Don't let them do that. Make sure you know who owns your masters. And not in a metaphorical sense, in the literal sense, like as an artist, as a musician, your masters are, that's the best way you make money. Who owns it? And at the end of the episode, he does ask her, and he's like, who owns my masters? Like, you did all the negotiating for that. Who's got that? And he's like, you do. Like, I made sure that you had that. And I loved that. It's earn we sorry, I don't know why my brain like stopped for a second. We see in season 1 Earn's difficulty in being a manager and all the ways that he's losing out on the hustle. We really see in season 3 it's like he's really coming to his own. And I like that. I do really like seeing the character growth here. I remember something I had said at the end of season 1 and at the end of season 2, or excuse me, more like at the start of season 2, was season 1 seemed like it ended in a nice place, like there was kind of hope, and season 2, pretty early on, was like, nah, not particularly, and I was kind of afraid I was going to be watching BoJack Horseman again. I love BoJack Horseman, but it's so unpleasant to watch, where at the end of every season you have hope, and it just gets crushed into itty-bitty pieces. So seeing genuine development and growth from the main cast, I don't know, I like that. I mean, like, granted, most shows have that kind of shit, but I was kind of worried that it was gonna be a show where you're hopeful, and then, like, no, you're kind of back to square one, see if you can get out of it, nope, back to square one, we're just watching Sisyphus. And I'm glad that I'm not watching Sisyphus Horseman. Let's see, I mentioned that. I mentioned Aaron trying to get the scholarship, and the fact he's like, look, I know that I don't identify as black, but if I can take advantage of the fact that part of me is black, I'm gonna do it. Everything that Van is doing in the finale, her like planning fake cocaine on Alexander Skarsgård, beating the shit out of a dude with a baguette to get the right baggie, the cooking hands, I guess, and her friend getting a free trip to Europe to go pee on a dude because hey, if that's all you gotta do to go to Europe is just pee on somebody, I mean, I guess you might as well do it. After that, the themes of like aimlessness and trying to find your identity. And to me, the fact that 40% of the season are these disconnected, isolated episodes, just the fact that these episodes exist at all did kind of give me that almost aimlessness feeling. Like, that, I don't want to necessarily say this because I feel like it's very intentional, but it almost felt like the show kind of saying, I don't really know what I want to do anymore. I think the show still has its identity because it still stays true to those core themes, but it felt like we don't really know what we want Atlanta to be anymore. We're willing to experiment, and that was sort of the aimlessness feeling. But on top of some of that, like that loss of, I think there's kind of two extra themes I want to talk about. It's the aimlessness, and it's also this isolation and this loss of power and loss of control. And I'm kind of going to be talking about both of these at the same time. Like, for example, the L'Aquarius episode, it's not really an aimlessness or a loss of identity, but there is certainly a loss of control and a loss of power in his life. And while he's not necessarily isolated, because he is still surrounded by the other kids don't really bond with each other, and there's no real connection to the foster parents aside from discomfort and fear. In the reparations episode, we have Marshall losing, like I was saying earlier, it's this, he is slowly becoming isolated. He loses his he loses his wife, his kid, his house, his job. And the scene where he's just sitting there in a hotel room and he takes out a cookie and he eats it and he's just crying really fucking hurt. I was saying that 3 Slaps is like, it's a great episode. I don't think I would watch it again. This episode is kind of the same. Like, it's fantastic, but just this poor man. Like, it just feels like a really mean-spirited joke. And I hated it. But it's fantastically, like, performed. Like, it's a really good episode. But that is an episode all about isolation. It's all about being, like, having that loss of power. You've got Sebastian's parents who don't... It's something they talk about, especially after the funeral, and they see... Oh, I can't remember what her name was. But after they see the nanny... Sylvia, thank you. Because as I heard the name, my brain was like, was thinking of Sylvia's mother. Not like a person I know, the old song. Anyways, they hear Sylvia's daughter say, like, when I needed you, you weren't there for me. Almost like, what kind of mother were you? And almost kind of their aimlessness in terms of how they are as parents. Where, like, we don't want to do that, but how well do we actually know our son? It's not necessarily their struggle with parenting, but it's just them not really knowing what the hell they're doing and trying to figure it out. And I guess even during the funeral, the loss of power and control is less with, like, how passionate the funeral gets. It's almost just the way that they see, we don't really know our son anymore. Like, as they're singing these, like, Caribbean songs, our son is getting really into it. Sylvia's daughter is talking to our son, and he's, like, responding to her in this tone. And, as they're in the church, and, the 2 parents are very quiet, the son's just very much like, yes, Lord, amen. And I'm like, that's definitely a black church vibe. I'm like, they are feeling that disconnect, almost like they're feeling the isolation from their kid, and I found that really interesting. Aaron... His loss of power is the fact that he can't go to college, even though it's what he really wants to do. He's lost his girl because of that. And, excuse me, the loss of identity and the aimlessness is him struggling with his racial identity. And for most of the story, it's not a struggle, but it seems like once he makes the application and goes through the interview, at that point, he doesn't really know what the hell he's doing anymore. Honestly, Van's entire storyline is about how aimless she is and kind of trying to find an identity and not knowing what the hell she wants to do. She and Darius are like, hey, we found this jacket with an address. Let's just go. Let's just do it. See what the hell happens because we got nothing better to do. We've got during the tree episode... She's like, I'm just kind of going to be an asshole. I'm just going to just push people into the pool because why not? She just starts stealing because why not? And then whatever the fuck she was doing in Terrar, because my understanding of it is that Van just had a mental breakdown because she talks about how she was driving. I think she said Lottie was in the car and she ended up driving on the other side of the road. And my interpretation of that wasn't just like, she was tired and lost focus. It almost sounded kind of like a suicide attempt. And so she's like, I need to, like, go do something with my life. And, I don't know if I had, like, a spark. So she went to Europe, hung out with Ern a few times, and was just... had no direction. And then found some direction in the weird hand business. And then as soon as someone brought up her daughter to her, it brought her back because that's the anchor that she needed. And I think she, like, her, I don't know her actress's name, but she absolutely, I think, killed it in that episode. We also see it with Alfred. And it's in the Wiley episode how Alfred is lacking direction as an artist. I mean, we also see the isolation in New Jazz. And he's definitely powerless in that episode because it's just him going on a trip, not really not being in control anymore. He doesn't know what the fuck is going on. But you see that loss of direction when he's talking to Wiley. He's like, dude, I need my phone. I have felt stagnant as an artist and as a creator for quite a while. And the other day, I finally got it. Like, I had inspiration. And I recorded it on my phone. And I'm terrified that if I lose it and I can't find my phone, that I'm out. Like, I'm done. Because I don't know where to go from here. And then Wiley's like, dude, like, I don't have your phone. And performs a song that he wrote after listening to Paperboy's music. And as he tells him, he's like, I feel like we're the same. Like, I heard your music, I didn't sympathize and empathize, but I thought, you and I are the same. And he performs his song, and Alfred is just sitting there quiet. He doesn't say a word. And his expression, it's like the same face the entire time, but I can see, like, I can almost, like, hear his thoughts as he's doing it. Like, you can feel the, like, okay, fine, whatever, like, I just need my fucking phone. And, like, as the performance goes on, you can see how much it's moving him. And you can feel his, like, I did it. You know, I was talking about how I never really wanted to be a rapper, but it's all I'm really good at. And him not really knowing how long he can sustain this, or if it's even worth it. And making and seeing the impact that his work has had on people. Not just the, like, yeah, I make money and people are fans. Like, I made a genuine artistic impact in the world and a genuine human connection through my music. And how much that really seems to mean to him. Like I said earlier, it is easily my favorite scene in the season. Yeah, that's kind of it. And then I just want to talk about some of the Bizarro shit. Because it is Atlanta, there's gotta be good Bizarro shit. Just that opening scene, like I said, of the two fishermen by the lake and how it turns into this horror story and, like, all these hands start pulling the dude into the water and then the white guy, like, doesn't have a face. We've got, I kind of said, almost basically the entire first episode, even for Atlanta, felt like some weird Bizarro shit. Which is wild because it's actually based on a true story. I believe it's the Hart family massacre, and it's not a fun read. It's almost like identical to what happened in the show. There's the scene, so Van and Darius end up going to, like, a funeral and a wake. Like, the guy is still alive, but they're essentially having his funeral right there. And Van goes up to the dying man. He's like, does anyone want to say a few words? She goes up to him, holds his hand. He's like, it's gonna be okay. It's okay. And then he dies. And the way he dies is they push a button and the, like, cellophane whatever on the top of the bed just falls on him and he fucking suffocates. And Van is watching this, like, shocked and mortified. And it was so unexpected that I just started howling with laughter. It's like, what the fuck? Like I said, there's that one scene with the promoter just, I'm going to destroy you. And then fucking chasing Ern. It kind of reminds me of the woman Ern was talking to in season 1 during the Justin Bieber episode. The old guy who didn't pay Alfred his money tells this ghost story where he fucked a ghost. There's a line that Socks has in the Wiley episode where he says, I'm the white Liam Neeson. I loved that shit. And then, yeah, later Liam Neeson just shows up. There's a scene when Ern and Van are discussing Nickelodeon and specifically the Nick or Treat. And he's like, yeah, that's, I never heard of that, but that's when they were saying in the ads. And speaking of Nickelodeon, in Trinity to the Bone, the parents at one point, when they're talking about like child development and psychology or whatnot, they bring up Dr. Lipschitz. I'm like, same Dr. Lipschitz from Rugrats? Is that what we're doing here? Because I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of neat as hell. I actually really like that. I'm assuming that's an intentional reference. During New Jazz, at the start of the episode, Alfred and Darius see this dude wearing a goofy hat and it's just like convulsing in the corner, and Darius is like, hey man, don't end up like that guy. And that's Alfred like 24 hours or whatever in the future. Oh yeah, another thing I missed from Turning to the Bone. This is less like bizarro, and I guess these aren't all weird. Sometimes it's just shit that sticks out to me. Is when they're explaining death to Sebastian. Sebastian's like, well, can she come back and say goodbye and then go back to being dead? There's also from New Jazz, while Alfred is tripping balls, like there's these teenagers. They're like, hey, is that Paperboy? And he doesn't want to bother with them, so he runs and he ends up hiding. And he sees the kids fucking grab a baby out of a stroller and start running with it, and then they start playing catch with the baby. Oh yeah, there's also this line in the episode where Alfred says to someone, I don't remember if it was Darius, but he's like, I had to watch the movie Cats sober. And then later they're in the cancel bar, there's someone in like a full cat style outfit. I guess like the whole blackness interview that Aaron went through, the fucking Clarence Thomas lines, you know, remind me of Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas got his. You didn't have to compare him to Clarence Thomas. The fact that it went from Stonewall Jackson to Robert Lee High School, I'm like, I get it, S and E, very different connotations there, but still, it still sounds Confederate adjacent. The, as I call it, the baguette beat. When Ferris starts beating the shit out of the dude. I was laughing so hard during that scene. The fact that the job she's working at, like the package wasn't drugs, it was human hands, and the people there are eating fried hands. That to me is like peak Atlanta bizarro fucking weirdness. There's a line when Van is talking to her friend, she's like, I watched Amelie, and I'm like, I wanted to be that cool, but I'm not as cool as Amelie. Which, fun fact, is the reason I've seen the movie Amelie, because my friends had watched season 3, and they decided to watch the movie, and I watched it with them, and I remember really liking it. I'm like, oh, I remember them saying that it was because of Atlanta. I get it now. And, yeah, the fact that, aside from the last scene when Ern gets mail from someone else named Ernest Marks, so I'm assuming is going to be in season 4, maybe not. The last scene before the credits is just of one of Van's friends peeing on a dude while looking at outside of the Eiffel Tower. I'm like, yeah, this is the image we're ending the season on. Okay. So, that was season 3. Like I said, I didn't love it as much as the first 2 seasons, but I did like it. And then as I sat down and I really went through it, like theme by theme, yeah, pretty much every episode relates to at least one of these, if not multiple. I felt like in hindsight the season really came together. I don't know when I'm going to start season 4. I might start it either this week or next week, but I am looking forward to watching season 4. There is one scene that I know about. It's the grits don't work on me scene. It's so fucking funny. Like, I don't know how good the episode is as a yeah. I don't know how good the episode is. I'm assuming it's going to be great. But that scene alone, I know, is gold and worth the price of admission.